Today is Tuesday, December 6, 2011, and this is Vos de Sueños After Dark. I'm your host, and this is Past Sins Chapter 6, Reunion of the Royal Pony Sisters. Twilight, along with the rest of the audience, applauded as the preceding performance ended. All of Ponyville, as well as a number of ponies from other towns, were sitting in the city's central square, which had been transformed into an outdoor theater for the spring festival. A large temporary stage with a professional setup of lights and other equipment had been constructed on one side of the plaza that surrounded the town hall. The area was packed with ponies, all eagerly standing and waiting to see the many performances. Twilight, Spike, and their friends were not amongst the crowd on the ground. Instead, they had been invited to sit with Princesses Celestia and Luna in what was being called the VIP section for very important ponies.
Oh, that was a funny one. I love the one part where they threw a pie.
Pinkie Pie cheered as she bounced on her seat cushion.
Yeah,
Rainbow Dash agreed.
that was pretty sweet.
Total laugh riot, Spike agreed excitedly.
The humor was lowbrow, but enjoyable,
Rarity remarked, not as impressed as her friends.
though I particularly liked the joke about blues music.
Really? 'Cause that one was kind of stupid if you ask me, Applejack argued.
It must have simply gone over your head.
Really? Then wouldn't it have hit her hat? Pinkie Pie asked, making Rainbow Dash snort.
Oh, jeez.
Rainbow Dash laughed.
Some ponies should tell those stallions that one. That's a joke that should be in a play.
The others were giggling right along with Rainbow Dash, including Princesses Celestia and Luna. While the group of ponies had been a little tense around the royal sisters at first, a few good performances and Princess Celestia cracking a particularly witty joke let every pony feel more at ease.
So, what's next on the program, sister?
Princess Luna asked, the younger royal sister obviously eager to see the next performance.
Let's see. The Reunion of the Royal Pony Sisters by the Ponyville Elementary School,
replied the Sun Princess.
Oh yeah, this is the one I've been waiting for,
Dash said eagerly, sitting up on her cushion.
This is the one about us.
Personally, I ain't as excited, Applejack admitted.
I know Apple Bloom wouldn't mean to, but she could right easily make me look like a foal, and I don't need no pony snickering behind my back because of this. I'm sure Apple Bloom will do fine,
Fluttershy reassured.
After all, she actually knows you. I don't even know the pony who's going to be playing me.
Yeah, I guess you're right, Applejack agreed as she flipped open the program sitting at her hooves.
Hey, says here they got Nix to play Nightmare Moon. Really? Huh. I guess that's kind of cool. I mean, sure, she's got the right coat color, but she's kind of a crybaby. Rainbow Dash, that's mean,
Fluttershy scolded. Dash shrugged.
Hey, I just call it as I see it. Well, I wouldn't get your hopes up, girls. Nix wasn't feeling well earlier,
Twilight lied.
Oh, the poor thing. Did she have a stomachache?
Fluttershy asked.
Oh, yes. Really nasty tummy ache,
Twilight said, more than willing to latch onto Fluttershy's provided excuse.
I actually left her back at the library with Aloysius. I doubt she'll be able to make it. Twilight, it sounds like this little filly is living with you,
Celestia pointed out, looking at her student.
I'm surprised you haven't told me. Oh, really? I thought I told you about it back when she first arrived. She's my cousin. A half-cousin, really. But yeah, she's been staying with me for a while now.
Twilight was trying to keep as casual as possible, but she was unable to stop herself from putting on a stupid, forced smile before quickly changing the subject.
So, Princess Luna, you going to be okay? I mean, this play is kind of about...
Don't worry, Twilight,
the Moon Princess assured with a smile.
I think I'll be okay. Besides, it's a play by elementary school children. If anything, it will make ponies laugh at Nightmare Moon. And I think it would be nice to have that particular part of my past remembered comically. Thank you for asking.
Oh, you're welcome, Princess,
Twilight said, smiling that her redirection of the conversation had worked. It was just a few minutes later that the mayor, Ivory Scroll, walked out into the center of the stage, the politician pony acting as the Spring Festival's master of ceremonies.
Fillies and gentlecoats,
Ivory began with her usual flair.
I am now proud to present the Ponyville Elementary School's original play, The Reunion of the Royal Pony Sisters.
The crowd applauded, the parents in the crowd particularly loud as the mayor stepped off the stage and the curtains opened. Smoke began to curl out from the stage, a few dark set pieces looming in a sea of mist. The only light came from the stars and moon above, and, for a moment, all things were quiet.
Beware, beware, you pony folk, for the tale I'm about to tell is no joke. A story begun in days, months, and years gone by, about the pony sisters who in harmony ruled the sky.
At this, one of the set pieces on the stage moved, causing some of the ponies in the audience to jump and others to gasp. What happened at first to be a set piece was, in fact, a cloaked equine figure who moved to the center of the stage as a light clicked on. The single light cast heavy shadows across the figure, body hidden in the darkness of the cloak. The figure paused for a moment, after the light had turned out before lifting a white and black striped hoof. Zecora couldn't help but smile as she removed the hood of her cloak, looking out across a sea of faces that were staring back at her with varying levels of shock.
The eldest did guide the sun when it woke up, raising it at the dawn,
Zecora narrated, continuing the performance's introduction.
The other brought the moon when the day had ended and the sun to bed had gone.
2 more lights clicked on stage, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon standing on opposite sides of the stage in their Princesses Celestia and Luna costumes. As Zecora stepped off to one side of the stage where she would narrate the rest of the play, the 2 little fillies climbed up the steps hidden behind the backdrop of the play, standing on the backs of printed wooden mountains, while a number of the other students came out and began to dance and play on stage.
The 2 sisters brought harmony to the world as they brought balance to the moon and sun, and beneath their guidance all different ponies lived, laughed, and had fun.
Wow, Zecora's doing a really good job with this whole narrator thing,
Dash whispered to Applejack, the pair sitting next to each other.
You got that right, Sugar Cube.
But not all would be well in Equestria as the younger sister grew resentful, her actions set to make the future of the land quite eventful. The ponies of the land did frolic and play, lived much of their lives under the sun's golden rays. Yet they slept through the night and its majesty, something in truth that was a horrible tragedy.
As Zecora narrated, the fillies and colts on stage performed the scene. Diamond Tiara, dressed as Princess Celestia, stood proud as the ponies on stage played and laughed. But when she hid and Silver Spoon came out as Princess Luna, the other ponies on the stage all quickly pretended to fall asleep, some playfully snoring.
In time it all became too much for the younger sister to bear, to have her night ignored, to feel as if no pony cared. One fateful night she did protest, refusing to lower the moon in the west. All of this she did despite her elder sister's distress.
Luna, why won't you lower the moon? It's time for the sun to come up.
Diamond Tiara said, overextending the words as she gave a very forced regal tone to her voice. She and Silver Spoon were on raised steps behind the plywood mountains again, calling to each other from opposite sides of the stage, while the other little actors and actresses continued to pretend to be asleep.
I'm tired of no pony seeing my night,
Silver Spoon called back, also faking a regal tone.
I work so hard on it, and all they do is sleep through it. It's beautiful, but no pony ever sees it but me.
Well,
Diamond Tiara stammered.
Looks like some pony has forgotten her lines,
Rarity whispered.
Personally, I don't think it could have happened to a nastier filly. Well, what else are ponies supposed to do? It's too dark to work at night, and, it's too bright to sleep during the day,
Diamond Tiara finally answered. This caused some chuckles to go through the audience, Luna herself snorting. Diamond Tiara, in her moment of panic, had reverted to her normal snotty way of speaking, a voice comically inappropriate for a filly that was supposed to be portraying the Sun Princess, who took herself in good humor, chuckling under her breath.
I don't care,
Silver Spoon yelled, able to remember her lines better than Diamond Tiara.
I won't have my work being ignored anymore. They are going to see the majesty of my night whether they want it or not.
But, sister,
Diamond Tiara called, only to have her voice fall silent as the light on Silver Spoon grew dark and Zecora began narrating again.
But it was too late for her kind words to soothe the younger's heart. Too deeply had she been hurt by the ponies who ignored her skybound art. The bitterness inside her twisted, writhed, and contorted, to the point that even the princess's exterior became distorted. Gone was her gentle visage in the emotional monsoon, leaving behind only the dreadful nightmare moon.
The light on the right side of the stage clicked on again, and gasps cut through the audience. Silver Spoon had been replaced by another little filly with supposedly fake wings stretched high and perfectly still and an all-black coat. On her flank was a fairly well-painted crescent moon cutie mark, and the fake armor looked rather convincing from a distance. Finally, the filly's eyes, which appeared to be shaped like dragon eyes, had brilliant turquoise irises, while the whites of the eyes were a lighter teal color.
Hey, look, Nick's made it.
Applejack whispered energetically.
Sweet apples, that little filly does pull off a convincing nightmare moon.
Oh, yes, of course,
Rarity agreed, glancing nervously at Twilight.
She's positively a doppelganger.
And it's good to see how she's gotten over her tummy ache. Must have just been pre-show butterflies.
Celestia commented as she leaned over to Twilight.
Yeah, butterflies.
Twilight answered weakly, suddenly feeling as if she were about to lose her lunch. Nyx looked at the audience as the realization that she would be in front of this many ponies at once sank in. She instinctively closed her eyes and started to wince, feeling the temptation to fall on her knees and hide. She had been so excited about this play, so excited to do the story, and maybe make some new friends. She hadn't realized or been told that it was going to be this many ponies watching her. Still, Nyx licked her lips and swallowed, thinking about her friends. She had just gotten herself in deep trouble with Twilight for them, and she wasn't going to let them down now. She just had to get through her lines. And she had practiced and memorized those lines so many times she could recite them in her sleep. She just needed to take a breath and say the lines.
Never again will the ponies of Equestria see the sun. I hereby decree that this night shall last forever.
Nyx boasted, faking the evil laugh at the end, which brought a small round of laughter from the audience. It was kind laughter, supportive laughter, laughter that gave Nyx a little more courage. She could do this, and she would do it, because she was already going to get in trouble for it anyway. Yet, while the laughter gave Nyx courage, the reaction of the crowd baffled Twilight. Why hadn't an angry mob formed? Nyx looked too much like Nightmare Moon, but no pony seemed to take the resemblance seriously. Did they all just think that Nyx's costume was that good? The unicorn couldn't contemplate this thought for long as Zecora's voice drew her attention back to the stage.
A night did last across the pony lands, despite the elder sister's pleas and demands. In the end, with no other choice to be made, the elder sister had to take up the crusade. With the elements of harmony, a power beyond all measure, the elder banished her sister, an act in which she took no pleasure.
The lights on stage began to flicker on and off in a rainbow of colors as Nyx faked cries of anger and pain. When the lights returned to normal, Nyx had disappeared from view, and in her place, a plywood moon had been lowered into view, which was painted with the visage of the mare and the moon.
To the moon the younger sister was sent, so that the ponies of Equestria she would never again torment. The elder took on duties twofold, tending to both moon silver and the sun gold. Harmony was returned, and the elder's actions many did commend. After 1,000 years all was good, but this story is not at its end.
With that, the curtains quickly shut, the first act of the play ending in an appropriate round of applause. There was only one pony who didn't applaud. Luna, while having enjoyed the children's performance, had sank down into her seat a little when the filly playing Nightmare Moon appeared on stage. The princess hung her head, staring at her hooves as memories of that particular moment in her life came back like angry spirits. Yet, before Luna could get too lost in her own thoughts, she felt a gentle touch. Looking to the touch, the Moon Princess saw a large white wing draped over her shoulder.
"Are you going to be okay?"
Celestia asked very quietly, using her wings to gently hug her younger sister to her side.
"Yes, I'll be all right,"
Luna replied, resting her head on Celestia's shoulder.
"Thanks, Tia."
While the play had the level of professionalism that one would expect from something put on by colts and fillies, the crowd on the whole was enjoying it, even those who weren't parents. After the first act, the next part of the play was Twilight meeting up with her friends in Nightmare Moon's return. That led to the second scene of the second act, when Twilight and her friends were going through the Everfree Forest and facing the trials within. And, of the crowd, Twilight's friends seemed to be enjoying it the most. Dash was thrilled to see how awesomely she was being portrayed by Scootaloo, while Applejack and Rarity were satisfied by how well their little sisters were acting. Dinky Doo put on a fairly good impression of Twilight, though the little filly tripped on her lines occasionally, and Pinkie Pie was still grinning ear to ear from hearing her song about giggling at the ghostly being sung on stage. It was something they were all enjoying, even Twilight. Nyx had appeared on stage a number of times before. She had stood on some steps in the background during the town hall scene, and, during the forest scenes, she was lower down on a rope, saying a few lines about what she had planned next for the little ponies before being raised back up. Twilight was furious that Nyx had disobeyed her, but she didn't dare risk running off to speak with Nyx in the middle of the show. That would have drawn too much attention. That, and the princesses were just sitting there, smiling. They didn't seem at all fazed with how much Nyx resembled Nightmare Moon, even though the filly's true dragon-like eyes were visible to every pony. Twilight needed a way to explain that before the play ended, but she couldn't focus on it too much. The third scene of the second act, which was the play's climax, was beginning. It was the part which Twilight was most worried about. It was set to occur against the backdrop of the old castle, and she feared the scene might dredge up unwanted memories in Nyx.
And with the final trial past, the ponies did arrive. To the resting place of the elements they hoped to revive.
Zecora narrated, retreating off stage as the 6 ponies playing Twilight and her friends stepped into view, drawing close to the wooden pedestals that held the fake elements of harmony.
The elements of harmony! We've found them!
Dinky Doo, the unicorn cast to play the role of Twilight, cheered. Unlike the real elements, the fake ones were set on pedestals low enough to the ground that the little colts and fillies were able to get to them without actually having to fly up or lift them with magic.
1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5!
The pony playing Pinkie Pie pointed out.
Squeak!
Pinkie Pie whispered, trying to keep her voice down but finding it difficult.
I said that! I said that! This is so cool! They just got everything right!
That's mostly because of you, Sugar Cube, since you somehow remembered everything we exactly said.
Oh, that was easy. I just read the transcript.
You read the what now? Shh! I'm trying to watch.
Dash grumbled, knowing her character had a line coming up.
Where's the 6th?
Scootaloo asked as she and the other fillies looked around while Dinky Doo moved closer to the 5 fake elements.
The book said that when there are 5 present, a spark will cause the 6th element to be revealed. And what in the hay is that supposed to mean?
Apple Bloom asked, pulling off her sister's thicker accent fairly well.
I'm not sure, but I have an idea. Stand back. I don't know what will happen. Come on now, y'all. She needs to concentrate.
Apple Bloom ordered, ushering the other fillies off the stage, leaving only Dinky Doo alone with the fake elements. The little unicorn knelt down beside the painted round props and made her horn glow. She was not actually attempting to cast a spell, but merely making her horn glow for the effect. The stage, however, began to get enveloped by smoke, fog machines in the back casting out the thick white clouds as indigo light shined on the mist. A few of the students who had slipped out of costume used some ropes to pull the fake pedestal that had held the elements of harmony out of the middle of the stage. Other students working backstage then pulled on some fishing string attached to the fake elements, causing them to slide away from Dinky Doo and hang in the air above the right side of the stage. When Dinky noticed what was happening, she reached out with a hoof and shouted,
The elements!
It was a shout reciprocated by fake, evil laughter as Nyx stepped into view, while the stage lights flickered and the students behind the scenes smashed pots and pans together, simulating thunder and lightning. Still, despite Nyx's laughter, Dinky did as the real Twilight Sparkle did. She lowered her head and beat her hoof against the ground aggressively. Nyx lifted a hoof in disbelief.
You're kidding! You're kidding, right?
Dinky, however, was not kidding. The unicorn charged at Nyx, who broke into a similar charge. Just as the two were about to cross paths, the stage lights went pitch black, and when the lights came back on, Nyx was still standing in the center of the stage. Dinky Doo, however, was over by the fake elements, her horn glowing as some of the backstage students began flashing flashlights on the painted props. trying to make it look as though they were starting to activate. Nyx raced across the stage, but before she could reach Dinky Doo, a number of lights, which were aimed at the audience, flashed. The bright light blinded most of the crowd, obscuring the stage for a few key moments. When the blinding effect was gone, Dinky Doo was on the far side of the stage, looking like she had been thrown back, while Nyx stood in the center of the fake elements of harmony, the students from backstage still flickering flashlights on and off and waving them around as if the elements were still about to activate.
No! No!
Nyx snapped, shrinking back in fear of the fake elements. But as in reality, the elements did not activate, the students playing with the flashlights stopping while Dinky Doo put on an overly large expression of shock.
Well, where's the sixth element?
Nyx, however, only broke out into her playful, evil laughter as she stomped on the fake elements of harmony, causing some of the more invested crowd members to gasp. Twilight, however, was holding her breath. This was the moment. This was the part of the play she had worried about the most. Nyx finished stomping on the last of the elements, turning around to face Dinky Doo on the far side of the stage. The filly put on the wickedest smile she could manage, lifting a hoof to point at Dinky.
You little fool! Thinking you could defeat me?
Nyx called out, her voice turning very dark, very serious, and very convincing.
Now, you will never see your princess or your son. The night will last forever!
Nyx finished before letting out an evil laugh. The most convincing evil laugh the audience had heard from the filly all evening. It sent a shiver down Twilight's spine, as she had heard the real Nightmare Moon say those very same words and in a very similar way. It made the unicorn swallow nervously, looking over at Celestia and Luna. The princesses still seemed to be enjoying the play, but Twilight still couldn't shake the thought from her mind. Nyx had said those last lines too well. And thus the night again became ruled over by the younger, banished from her body the vengeful hunger. And from this story may a lesson you firmly grip, there is nothing stronger than the power of friendship. With those last lines from Zecora, the curtains fell, and the audience broke into a roaring round of applause. A few moments later, the curtains reopened as Cheerilee stepped onto the stage and gave a few quick bows and waves.
Thank you all,
the teacher said to the crowd.
I'm happy to see you enjoyed the play. The students worked really hard and, because of their efforts, this became one of the most successful plays ever put on by the Ponyville Elementary School. Now, let's have a round of applause for these colts and fillies who did such an excellent job. First, a round of applause for those who played our story's hero. First, Dinky Doo.
The crowd complied, stomping hooves as the students began to stream on stage. Cheerilee introduced every filly and colt by name as they came out, doing her best to shout above the applause of the crowd. The first to come out, doing so one by one, were the fillies who played the parts of Twilight and her friends. Applejack gave an extra loud holler when Apple Bloom came on stage, and Rarity put her hooves together and whistled when it was Sweetie Belle's turn to step out and bow.
Next, we have the fillies who portrayed our dearest Princesses Celestia and Luna, who grace us with their presence this evening. Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon.
Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon were the next to come out, acting like proper divas as they smirked and bowed in their Princess Celestia and Princess Luna costumes. They lingered on the stage for a little longer than they should have, soaking in the applause. It took Cheerilee motioning towards them to get the two fillies to stand back up and stand in line with the others.
And now, playing the wicked and dastardly Nightmare Moon, give a big round of applause for Nyx.
Twilight was shocked when the crowd cheered very, very loudly as Nyx nervously walked onto the stage, the cheering as loud as the applause had been for Dinky Doo and the other fillies who played the main characters in the play. Applause that was a whole lot louder than what Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon had received, and, by the looks on their faces, the two snooty fillies knew it. Twilight couldn't keep herself from applauding either, even though Nyx was still in so much trouble. Twilight even heard a whistle come from her side, Celestia putting a hoof to her lips and offering a very loud, very supportive whistle for Nyx. Even Luna was applauding, despite the fact that Nyx had been portraying something that Luna probably only wished to forget. Did the two princesses really just believe that Nyx was in a costume? It was a miracle Twilight had never believed possible. Nick shakily bowed just a few times before stepping back to stand with those who had taken the stage and bowed. Some of the colts and fillies then stepped forward again as they were given credit for the costumes and set construction. The final 2 ponies invited up were Lyra and Zecora. The light turquoise unicorn had composed the background music, and Zecora, of course, deserved a round of applause for her expert narration. Cheerilee was the last to bow, since she was the one who had taken the stories and converted them into the play for the kids to perform. After that, with a final bow from the group, the stage's curtains closed as the spring festival entered an hour-long intermission.
Mommy,
Dinky Doo chirped as she ran up to the gray-coated and blonde-maned Pegasus.
did I do good? You were wonderful, Muffin.
Ditty Doo replied, giving her little filly a nuzzle and a hug. Twilight passed by the warm scene with Rarity, Applejack, and Rainbow Dash as they moved backstage to where the students were getting out of their costumes. It didn't take long for the quartet to find the fillies they were looking for. Applebloom, Scootaloo, Sweetie Belle, and Nix were drinking water from paper cups. 3 of the fillies had already gotten out of their costumes, while Nix was still completely in hers.
Darlings, that was positively fabulous.
Rarity chimed, alerting the 4 fillies to the group's approach. Applebloom, Scootaloo, and Sweetie Belle all quickly turned and ran over, grinning ear to ear. Nix, however, hung back, trying not to meet Twilight's gaze.
Really? Was it good?
Sweetie Belle asked.
Positively pitch perfect,
Rarity assured.
Yeah, big props, Scootaloo. You got me down pat.
Oh my gosh, 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 oh my gosh.
Scootaloo rattled off, overwhelmed by the fact that she was getting such a huge compliment from her personal hero, Rainbow Dash.
How about me, big sis? That was like looking in a mirror, Sugar Cube.
Applejack praised, giving Applebloom a little noogie.
Y'all did a great job, didn't they, Twilight? Yes, they all did an amazing job.
Twilight agreed. It was the first time since the unicorn arrived that Nix chanced looking up, her currently undisguised dragon eyes meeting Twilight's eyes. In that silent moment, Nix was able to smile, seeing that Twilight wasn't glaring at her with disappointment or anger.
Even me?
Nix nervously ventured.
Well, shoot, course, Nix, Applejack assured. Especially that last Nightmare Moon laugh. Oh, Nelly, sent a shiver down my spine. Wow, nice work on our eyes, Twilight,
Dash said, fluttering over and inspecting Nix more closely.
I didn't even know you knew a spell for this.
Twilight nervously smiled, thankful Rainbow Dash had assumed it was a spell.
Oh, just something I found in one of my spell books. That is so awesome. I gotta try it. Say what now? Come on, Twilight,
Dash said, landing and using a hoof to motion towards her face.
I want to see what I look like with dragon eyes.
Twilight forced a smile, only now realizing that she might actually be asked to perform the spell. Still, there was no going back. She'd have to try, at least once, and if she failed, she could just tell Dash she'd do it tomorrow, buying herself enough time to actually figure out the spell. Still, maybe she could pull it off. It would just be an illusion spell, like the one she put on Nix's glasses. She'd just have to apply it straight to Dash's eyes. No big deal, she just had to use it on a live pony with the opposite effect. She could do it. Maybe. Closing her own eyes, Twilight focused her magic. She gritted her teeth, concentrating, and then she felt the flash of the spell going off. For a moment, she didn't dare look, fearing that, despite her search of magic, the spell still hadn't manifested and she had just made a fool of herself in front of her friends. But the gasps of amazement from the ponies encouraged Twilight to look at Dash's eyes and see that the spell had worked. Her eyes had been transformed, now looking very dragon-like. Strong pink irises with dagger-shaped pupils. Even the whites of the Pegasus's eyes had been tinted, now a light pink that complemented the iris color.
Whoa, this is so awesome,
Dash said, catching her reflection in a nearby wall mirror.
Well, don't get used to it. The illusion spell will wear off pretty quickly,
Twilight lectured.
Yeah, I hear you,
Dash said as she looked away from the mirror.
Still, I'm going to enjoy this while it lasts. After we're done here, we have to find Pinkie Pie. She is so going to freak out when she sees this.
Yeah, I suppose she will, Applejack agreed.
Still, I reckon all you little fillies have worked up quite the appetite with this acting. How about we go catch up with Fluttershy and Pinkie and then go get y'all some dinner?
Yeah!
The fillies cheered in unison.
Sounds good,
Twilight agreed.
why don't you go on ahead and find us a place to eat? I need to help Nyx out of her costume.
The others just nodded in agreement, heading off the stage and leaving Twilight and Nyx alone. When their friends were out of sight, Twilight turned her gaze down on Nyx, raising an eyebrow as she tapped a hoof expectantly.
Am I in trouble?
The filly asked, trying not to tear up.
Yes, you are, Nyx. You did disobey me,
Twilight replied, but she soon smiled and raised Nyx's chin with a gentle hoof.
But you were right. It wasn't fair of me to try and keep her from the play, and you did an amazing job.
Really?
Yes, really.
Twilight reassured as she nuzzled the filly.
Though, would you mind telling me why I can see your real wings and you don't have on your glasses?
Well, when I was trying to get the costume on, I kind of broke the costume wings. But I've been keeping my wings up like this all night, so no pony has been able to tell the difference.
And the glasses?
I forgot them. Charlie thought you must have cast a spell on my eyes since you're so good with magic.
Well, I guess if there was a night to forget your glasses, this was it.
Twilight said with a chuckle.
Now, why don't you hop on my back? The library isn't too far away. If I gallop, we can get back there real quick, get your glasses and vests, and then we'll come back and eat dinner with the others.
Really? You aren't going to make me stay at the library?
Kind of pointless now that the play is over,
remarked Twilight.
So, no, you can come back with me and have dinner with every pony.
Nyx gave a wide smile as she hopped up onto Twilight's back.
Thank you, Twilight.
And then we'll discuss your punishment in the morning.
Nyx flattened her ears.
Oh.
But, Daddy, how could they cheer louder for her? She was the bad mare and I was Princess Celestia. Time and Tiara, please be quiet and eat your dinner,
the filly's mother scolded. Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon's families were seated together at one of Ponyville's cafes. The restaurant was a fair distance from the spring festival, so it wasn't too crowded. The parents had chatted lightly about the performance, but had long since gone on to other topics despite Diamond Tiara's continued desire to keep whining about what had happened. The worst of it was that Diamond Tiara hadn't been able to escape Nyx. Within 20 minutes of her family's arrival at the restaurant, Nyx had arrived with a large group of ponies who were now laughing and having fun at the far end of the restaurant.
Oh, look, honey,
Diamond Tiara's mother whispered, drawing her father's attention as well as Diamond Tiara's. The whole restaurant, in fact, had turned their heads, watching as Princesses Celestia and Luna walked into the restaurant.
I wonder what brings them to this quaint little eatery. It's not exactly what I would consider royal class,
Silver Spoon's mother whispered. Well, isn't it obvious? They were so enamored by our daughter's performances that they came looking for them. Now, everybody look your best, Diamond's father assured, and soon the 4 adults and 2 fillies were doing just that, quickly primping and preparing themselves as the princesses began to walk in their direction. Still, despite Diamond Tiara's wide grin, the princesses strolled right on by as if they weren't even there.
Where are they going?
Diamond Tiara whispered harshly.
No, they aren't. They are. They're sitting with those losers. Diamond Tiara, hush. It isn't our place to judge who the princesses sit with, scolded her mother. But it isn't fair. I actually had to dress up and put on a real costume to look like Princess Celestia. Nyx didn't have to do anything but put on some fake wings to look like Nightmare Moon.
Diamond Tiara's father opened his mouth to tell her daughter to be quiet, but as he did, he looked over his shoulder and got a glance of the foal in question. She does look a great deal like Nightmare Moon, doesn't she?
Like, totally. She didn't have to dye her coat or mane or anything.
Those are her natural colors. It isn't even fair. Diamond Tiara's father just kept staring, his azure eyes flashing a bit before he turned back to the table. Yes, the natural resemblance is uncanny.
Well,
Twilight yawned.
That was a long night.
The unicorn had just arrived back at the library. Both Spike and Nyx were sleeping soundly, sprawled out across her back. It was a cute scene, but one that wore Twilight out since she had left the restaurant. Aloysius gave a welcoming hoot, which Twilight returned with a nod as she carried Spike and Nyx up to the bedroom. Spike was the first to get tucked into bed. the dragon mumbling something about rarity in donuts as he turned over and snuggled into his blanket. Nyx was next, Twilight slipping her out of her vest and glasses before putting her under the covers. With the two tucked away, Twilight turned to head downstairs, only to hear a small voice call out to her.
Twilight! Oh, sorry, Nyx. I didn't mean to wake you up.
Twilight apologized, turning back to see Nyx's bright eyes staring at her in the dark.
It's okay. Thank you for letting me go to dinner with everybody.
Well, you're welcome. Now, you should get some sleep. You've had a long day.
The unicorn replied, making sure Nyx was properly tucked into bed.
Okay.
Nyx whispered hesitantly.
But Twilight?
Yes?
Nyx spoke slowly, fiddling anxiously with her blanket.
You remember what happened in the forest? That thing I remembered or dreamed about in the castle? How I wanted to hurt you?
Yes, I remember.
Twilight answered with a slow nod.
Was
Nyx paused, swallowing nervously.
that Nightmare Moon's memory?
What makes you say that?
Twilight stuttered.
Well, when I was on stage, when I was saying my last lines, I remember I heard those same words in the nasty memory.
Nyx confessed, looking at her hooves.
Then I started saying them just like the nasty voice I heard. And it was like I was really saying them. Like I'd said them before. Was what I acted out in the play? Was it really the same thing Nightmare Moon did?
Twilight froze for a moment, debating how to answer the question. She had been striving to try to protect Nyx from what she feared was the truth. But after the long day, Twilight didn't have the mental strength to try and contrive some new lie to shield Nyx, and Nyx was too smart for anything overly simple. In the end, Twilight could only nod yes.
And when I went to the play, every pony kept telling me that I looked just like Nightmare Moon.
Nyx stammered, the little filly starting to get worked up.
They said my eyes were perfect and so were my wings. They thought they were fake, but they're not, and I don't know if any pony else was an alicorn like me either. And before the play started, I saw that book again, and I looked at the picture, and after hearing what everybody else said,
Twilight's heart skipped a beat as Nyx tried to brush away some tears that were forming, fearing what the filly might ask next.
Twilight?
Nyx began again, looking up at the unicorn with big, pleading eyes.
Is the reason I remember that night, remember you, and remember wanting to hurt you, is that the reason that I look like Nightmare Moon? Is it because am I somehow?
No,
Twilight said, firmly but comfortingly.
you are not Nightmare Moon.
But what about?
Twilight gently shushed Nyx and sat down beside the small bed before gathering her thoughts.
Nyx, I know you're little, and you may not understand all of this, but I think you deserve to know the truth. Or at least, what I think is the truth. You remember where I found you in the Everfree Forest? How, at the time, you didn't have any memories before then? How you didn't even have a name?
The filly nodded silently. Twilight exhaled, trying to figure out how to word her explanation properly.
Well, I think that it is because that's where you were born, and you only came into existence a few hours before I arrived. You weren't even a pony up until that moment you woke up tangled in that bush.
What do you mean?
Stammered Nyx.
Nyx, I believe you were created by a spell.
A spell?
Nyx asked, her eyes wide with confusion. Twilight nodded.
You see, there were some very mean, very evil ponies who I believe were trying to bring back Nightmare Moon.
Nyx sat up in her bed, pulling the covers up to her neck.
Why would they do that?
I don't know, but that's what I think they were trying to do. They pony napped me, and while I wasn't able to really see or hear what was going on, I know what I felt. When they started casting the spell, I felt powerful magic. Magic I've only sensed once before, when I was in the presence of the real Nightmare Moon. So, if my theory is right, they were trying to bring Nightmare Moon back. They were actually able to start the spell. They cast the spell, but then Celestia arrived and stopped the mean ponies. She interrupted the spell, rescued me, and her guards arrested the mean evil ponies involved.
And that's where I came from?
Nyx asked cautiously.
The thing about magic is that if you interrupt a spell,
You really can't be sure what you'll get, Twilight explained. The spell they cast wasn't complete when it was interrupted, and I think you're the result. I found you right next to the same clearing where the spell was cast.
At this, Nyx began to sniffle, tears already starting to stream down her face as she bit her lower lip.
But this means I am Nightmare Moon.
No, Nyx, you're not.
But you said that I came from a spell.
Nyx blubbered, her crying turning into full-fledged sobbing.
And you said that the spell was supposed to bring back Nightmare Moon. If that spell made me and I look like Nightmare Moon, and I have her memories, that I must be Nightmare Moon.
Nyx let out a wail, not even trying to wipe the tears from her eyes.
I'm Nightmare Moon. I was the one that banished Celestia to the sun. I was the one who tried to hurt you and your friends. I'm a monster. I'm a bad pony.
Before Nyx could continue her breakdown, Twilight brought her head close, nuzzling the filly's neck and using a hoof to gently rub Nyx's back. The filly responded by hooking her little front legs around the unicorn's neck, hugging her tightly while she continued to sob.
Nyx, you are not Nightmare Moon,
Twilight assured, being both comforting and firm.
But you do look like her, and you do seem to have some of her memories,
the unicorn admitted.
But Nyx, you are not Nightmare Moon. What you are is a perfectly normal, wonderful little filly. A sweet little filly who has 4 really great friends. A filly that likes going to school and was willing to get in big trouble just so she didn't let her classmates down. Nightmare Moon wouldn't have done any of that. She wouldn't even have friends. Nightmare Moon was a bitter, vengeance-driven pony who was willing to doom Equestria to eternal night just because ponies didn't stay up to look at the stars. And that isn't you, Twilight continued. You aren't the same pony. You are not Nightmare Moon, and you never will be her.
Nyx sniffed loudly.
You promise?
I promise,
Twilight assured, reaching down and nuzzling the filly's head. It drew a smile to Nyx's face, but the moment of happiness was doomed to die quickly as a fresh frown and new tears appeared on Nyx's face.
Hey, what's wrong? Twilight asked.
If I was created by a spell, then that means I don't have a mom and dad. I don't have a family like my friends.
Twilight soon cursed herself, realizing too late that Nyx figured out more than the unicorn wanted her to. She had to think fast. She didn't want Nyx to have to go to sleep with the knowledge she was born from a spell in the forest and that she had no real family. That was just too much to put on the little filly, at least all at once.
Nyx, just because you weren't born like a normal pony doesn't mean you don't have a family.
The filly rubbed her tear-streaked face with a hoof.
It doesn't?
No. You have all the family you could want right here in Ponyville, Twilight reassured her. Family is about more than just the ponies you're related to. Family can also be your friends and the ponies who care about you. After all, don't you have 4 really great friends?
I do.
And not just them. There are plenty of others who care about you, Twilight pointed out. Just look at Aloysius and Spike. They're practically your brothers.
Nyx frowned again, though this time in confusion.
But Aloysius is an owl and Spike is a dragon. How can they be my brothers?
Aloysius keeps an eye on you when I can't, and he brings you those little flowers and the other presents once in a while. He's also helped you with your homework when I don't have the time, and, like some big brothers, he's gotten himself into trouble to make you happy by letting you go to the play. And Spike, well...
Twilight paused, needing to find the right words.
Spike is your crazy older brother. He looks after you too, and while sometimes he gives you a hard time, he really appreciates it when you help him around the library. Both he and Aloysius would be among the first to jump up and help you if you were ever in trouble. So even though Aloysius is an owl and Spike is a dragon, they both treat you like their little sister. So, they take care of you and would rather see themselves get hurt before seeing you get put in any danger.
So...
Nyx said as she contemplated what she'd been told.
If Aloysius and Spike are like my older brothers, what does that make you?
Twilight felt a catch of air in her lungs at this, looking down at the little filly. What was she to Nyx? What was Nyx to her? She could easily say that she was just like an older sister, like Aloysius and Spike were brothers, but that didn't feel right. Applejack was the older sister to Applebloom, and while Applejack had to take some responsibility for raising the filly, they still had a sisterly relationship. Applebloom got on Applejack's nerves from time to time, and the Orange Farm filly sometimes had to rein in her little sister once in a while like a big sister would. But that wasn't the kind of relationship she had with Nyx. Twilight began to think of all the things she had done for Nyx since the little filly's arrival. She had sent her to school, read bedtime stories to her, made her meals from time to time. She helped Nyx catch up on the rest of her classes and tended to the filly when she was hurt. Most of all, Twilight thought of the day that Nyx got lost in the Everfree Forest because of Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. Twilight had never been so furious or worried. She was really on the verge of turning that spoiled little brat into a cactus, and then her father came by the library wanting an apology. Oh, she had wanted to... She wasn't sure what she would have done, but it wouldn't have been pleasant. And yes, one could argue that was anything a big sister would do. Applejack probably would have beaten the tar out of that father stallion for trying to defend his little daughter after what she'd done. But sister just didn't seem to fit. Twilight felt Nyx was more than just a sister to her. Nyx depended on her, and, if it weren't for Twilight, she could have easily died in the Everfree Forest. No. Twilight was no older sister to Nyx, but there was another name that seemed to fit. One that slowly floated to the top of the unicorn's mind.
Well, Nyx, if I was really honest, I'd say...
Twilight had to swallow, the words getting caught on the knot in her throat.
That I'm like... Well, your mother.
There was a moment of silence, Twilight watching Nyx to see the filly's reaction. It shifted through a number of expressions in this order. First shock, then disbelief, and finally, a weak but honest smile.
You really want to be my mom?
I'd love to be your mother, if you'd let me.
Twilight asked, leaning her head in close so she was at eye level with Nyx. Nyx's answer was not in a word, but in a gesture. The filly sitting up on her bed. Before Twilight knew it, she was once again being hugged by the filly, Nyx nuzzling to the side of the unicorn's head while the front of her legs hooked around Twilight's neck.
I would love to have you as my mom. You're the best mom ever.
Oh, Nyx.
Twilight whispered, eyes starting to tear up, even though she was smiling from ear to ear. The pair sat in the moment for a time, Twilight nuzzling Nyx while the filly continued hugging her neck.
Twilight?
Nyx asked a few moments later, still holding tightly to the unicorn's neck.
Yes, Nyx?
Thank you for everything. I love you.
I love you too, Nyx.
Twilight replied, tears rolling down her cheeks. She gently pulled herself away, quickly rubbing the tears off her face with her forelegs before using her magic to tuck Nyx into bed.
Now, it's time to go to sleep. It's late and you've had a long day.
Oh, okay.
The filly alicorn replied, yawning as she snuggled into her bed. Twilight smiled gently. Thinking of her own mother, she bent forward and gave Nyx the gentlest kiss on the forehead as the filly finally managed to drift off to sleep. Stepping back from the bed on the tips of her hooves, Twilight began to move towards the door. It wasn't what she'd expected, being called Mom for the first time. She had always thought she'd want a filly of her own someday. It just never occurred to her that Nyx could really be that filly. And she'd have to convince Nyx to keep calling her cousin around Ponyville, since that's how every pony else thought they were related. Still, Twilight had realized that she had really been acting like Nyx's mom for a long time, considering how she'd been taking care of the filly. Reading her to bed at night, and making sure she went to school, running out to find her when she got lost, and being on the verge of turning Diamond Tiara into a cactus for the bully filly's cruel prank. Yeah, she'd been acting like it, but it was a whole other bucket of hay to actually being called Mom. Still, Twilight would have to think about that in a minute. First, she needed to go have a word with Aloysius about why in the hay he had let Nyx sneak out to the play. Yet, before Twilight could reach the door, a voice whispered to her.
Hey, why am I just the older brother? Can I be her uncle or something?
Twilight turned, smiling gently as she saw Spike sitting up in his bed, hands on his hips as he eyed Twilight from across the room.
Spike, I was the one who hatched you, and I helped raise you before you could talk and look after yourself. Also, technically speaking, you're still a baby dragon, and that kind of makes me your mother, too.
Whatever. I still say I'd make her better uncle.
Spike stated.
Especially if you'd let me have back that awesome mustache. No uncle is complete without a mustache.
Sorry, Spike, but no mustache. Now, you should get some sleep.
Yeah, I heard you the first time, Mom.
Spike scoffed before he lay back down and threw the blanket over himself, snuggling into his bed. The baby dragon was back to sleep almost instantly, making Twilight giggle quietly before she crept out of the bedroom, heading downstairs.
Aloysius, can I have a word with you?
Ho ho.
Uh-oh is right, mister.
Twilight firmly asserted, needing to have a word with the owl on why he let Nyx leave despite her direct orders. And that was Past Sins, Chapter 6 by Penstroke, assisted by Batty Gloom. Y'all have a wonderful week. This is Voste Sueños signing off. Safe travels, every pony.